This is my conversation and presentation on academic conversations. This is going to primarily pertain to academic language, and academic language refers to the specialized vocabulary, grammar, discourse or textual, and functional skills associated with academic instruction and mastery of academic materials and tasks. That's actually quite wordy, but ultimately that deals with the way that language is spoken or written in a classroom and used to communicate ideas that relate to the subject material, which in my case is mathematics. Why does it matter? Well, hopefully the answer is somewhat intuitive, but according to the text, mastery of language and syntactic features allows students full participation in academics by enabling them to put ideas together in a wide range of ways. Essentially, academic language is useful for allowing students to participate in the classroom and allow them to communicate their ideas succinctly and successfully. There are four primary types of academic language that this presentation will be focusing on. They are language functions, vocabulary, discourse, and syntax. Language functions are content and the language focus of the learning tasks. So oftentimes they will be explicit within the lesson plan because they'll be talking about the learning outcomes. They may or may not, however, be explicit in the classroom, but they should most certainly be implicit. So some examples are things like compare, explain, describe. They are verbs that are going to ask the students to, again, either verbally or with written uses, communicate their ideas. The vocabulary are the words and phrases with subject-specific meanings. So some of the examples can, allude to objects: table, ruler, square. Zooming out a little bit, with polygons, or we have rectangles, circles, other various shapes. Again, some of the words that we were talking about with the language functions: compare, analyze, evaluate, describe. Those are vocabulary, but those are general vocabulary terms. They can be applied to English, math, science, social studies, and the like. Some of the vocabulary are a little bit more a little bit more specific to mathematics are things like exponent, numerator, multiple, denominator, depending on the section that's being talked about. The discourse is the ways in which the written and oral language is going to be used to communicate knowledge. So if the students are asked to construct an argument via, explain, this is why I would use this technique, this is why I would go about this method, or interpret graphic representations, whether either in statistics or linear equations, or making or supporting conjecture. Sometimes students have assumptions about things that the way mathematical problems will be solved, and so if they are able to communicate that, then they are able to go ahead and see, did that problem actually agree with their conjecture, or was it something different? When dealing with syntax is the rules for organizing words or symbols together. In math, oftentimes we emphasize the symbols over the words. Some of the examples are mathematical symbols. So oftentimes I find myself talking with students and telling them that order of operations is king because it tells us, this is the step-by-step process that we're going to use. When dealing with long or elaborate noun phrases, that comes into play with word problems. Oftentimes students have trouble dissecting a word problem and extrapolating the necessary information. With conditional statements, that's more like an if-then type statement. So sometimes used in working with a logic problem, also sometimes used with dealing with proportions, where saying, hey, if something is this proportion of this, then how can we just, use math to determine the rest of our information? So here are some talking activities that can be used to cultivate academic language. There are think, pair, shares, where students will pair up and will discuss the idea for a short period of time. I need to be careful about that because if I give too much time to that, students can go off topic. Also, sometimes that can just be used as a shallow level to not communicate very deep understanding about the ideas. So that would be a good activity if I want students to just get a general idea about what we're going to be discussing, or if I want them to go ahead and show that they understand how to use some vocabulary. I can also use small groups. One of the things that I enjoy doing is taking two students and another group pair two students and grouping them up together. That can be good. Again, I need to make sure that they stay on task. If I use small groups for technology activities, one thing that my methods teacher has talked about is only allowing one Chromebook per group, and I really like that idea because it makes sure that all the students are talking with one another, because they can't just go ahead and I'm going to do the work myself with just one book. Um, Now, effective conversation, in order to communicate this is something that needs to start at the beginning of the semester, or excuse me, school year. I'm still thinking college terms. Um, and hopefully this is something that the students can arrive at themselves, that these are aspects of effective conversation where they need to have humility both about their own ideas and about other students' ideas. They want to have thoroughness in the way that they communicate those ideas, so that way there's not a vagueness where a student might misinterpret what they're saying, and that I can clearly understand that they get the idea. I want to see a positivity among the students, see that they are, not bringing in too much negativity from other parts of the day. Otherwise, I think that's something that needs to be dealt with before even launching into the topic. But most importantly, I feel like an atmosphere of respect needs to be cultivated in and through the classroom, both students with themselves, and students with the teacher.